So, my dear students, I'm back and I welcome you all in Diva Tutorials. I'm really very happy to know that you all are preparing your notes and your NCRT questions. Very good. Keep it up, and these efforts will help you out. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover the chapter 2 of Economics, class 9th, that is People as Resource. So the topics which I am going to cover in this are the people as resource. Firstly, we will do a small discussion on this. Then human capital formation, and then the factors, the two, that is education and health. So what is the role of education in human capital formation, and what is the role of health in the human capital formation? So this all around we will cover in this video. So let's start. So let's start the chapter, that is People as Resource. So in this chapter you will study about the people, means the population of the country. It acts as a resource, and when that population acts as a resource. So firstly, small introduction regarding your resources. Resources, they are grouped into three categories. Natural resources, you know that these are the free gifts of nature, and they are like land, water, forest, etc. Capital resources like in building, tools, machines, raw material, as you already learned in chapter 1 about capital when you were studying all 4 factors of production: land, labor, then capital was there. So capital means the fixed capital, you can say building, tools, machines, and money in hand was have you learned that? Money in hand, that is the raw material. Okay, so it is all given over here about the capital resources. Third is human resources. Now when a human being are turned to resources, so if I am talking about human resources, it means that we are talking about some qualitative aspects, or you can say we are talking about that type of population which is developed, okay, which is educated, trained, skilled, qualified. Such type of population acts as human resource. Fine. So here it is written, refers to human beings, which implies country's working population with its existing productive skills and ability. It means what? Quality of population living in a country. Now let's discuss about the two aspects of country's population. One aspect is this, that we are thinking that too much population means too much people are there if in a country, and they are the major cause of unemployment. So this is the negative side, that we are just considering about the quantitative aspect of this part. But if we consider about the qualitative aspect, then this is the positive side of country's population, because just now I told you what, that human beings can be turned into resources only if their qualitative aspects are developed. Okay, so here negative aspect is population growth in India is major cause of unemployment, but in positive sense it is looking at the population from the productive aspect emphasizes its ability to contribute to the creation of GNP, that is gross national product. What is it? That the total means national income, okay, of goods and services. So this is the main thing of the qualitative population, the quality population. So positive side. So we will learn about the positive side. Okay. Now come to the human capital. Just now we were discussing about the positive side of the population. Fine. So population's positive side is quality, means when the investment is done on their education, health, and training. Okay. So in this chapter we are going to discuss about the 4th factor of production, okay, the human capital, knowledge and enterprise, which we discussed in the last chapter. Fine. So here, what is human capital? population becomes human capital. Simple definition of human capital is that all the population present in a country, you cannot say that that is human capital. But yes, that part of the population or that population is called human capital, or you can say becomes human capital when the investment is done on health, education and training. So this is the definition of human capital. Now what is human capital? Now exactly you can draw the definition from this only, that it is the stock of skills and productive knowledge embodied in human beings. Fine. This is the main thing, stock of skills and productive knowledge. Now, the process of improvement in human capital is called human capital formation. This is very important. How you can call human as human capital? When human capital formation, this process went, then the human beings become capitals, resource. Fine. So, what is human capital formation? How it is formed? When the investment is done on their improvement, okay, on their quality. So that is known as human capital formation. Okay, this can be seen in the form of higher productivity of more educated or better trained person. Now next is importance of human capital. Yes, it is very important to learn about it, how human capital is important for the country, for the society, for even individual people, how it is important. So human beings can be turned into resources if their qualitative aspects are developed. Okay, human capital importance. Why it is important? Because they contribute in the income of the nation. That is why there is importance of human capital. When the population is educated, working population is there, so it not only earns for itself but it earns for the whole country, means the income for the country is also there. So this is the importance of human capital. Now two major human resource inputs are, what are these two main human resource input? Health and education. Fine. So here health and education, these are the two major human resource inputs which make human beings as a resource, as a capital. Okay. Now see over here I have written two terms, that asset and liability. Fine. Now I'm giving you example. So we are talking about the asset and liability. So asset is what? Asset is that population which is qualitative in nature, means that quality population is called asset because that is earning for the nation as well as for itself. Fine. And liability means that weaker people, those who are illiterate and they are not trained and even they are very poor or leading a very poor life, so they are exactly the liability for the country, because the country has to firstly invest on their development, then only they can become the asset. Fine. So I hope that these two terms are clear, how a population becomes a liability and asset. So asset, that is the positive aspect, means investment is done on that part of the population, and that is why that population has become the asset for the country. But on the other hand, when the population is illiterate, no investment is done on their development, so that population becomes the liability. Now human capital. Human capital is beneficial both individually as well as socially. How you can say this? Because when take a small example, that when we are we are living in a society, fine, and we are all attracted towards the energetic people, or you can say the successful ones. Fine. So when the human capital means human beings are educated and they are trying to become more educated and more developed, so that is a kind of benefit for the society, because the people they need some ideal examples in front of them so that they may also get changes in their life. Fine. So that is not only it is working socially, but it is also working individually. So it creates individual as well as social benefits. Fine. Now a large population need not be a liability. You cannot say that a large population number of people are there in a country, so that is that the whole population is a type of liability. No, it can be turned into productive asset by investment in human capital, by spending resources on education and health. So by training them with the help of the modern technology, useful scientific researches, etc., the human capital can be made. I hope it is clear to you all. Now let's come to the first factor. This is the first factor that we will discuss in detail over here. Education. So this question comes that what is the role of education in human capital formation? Okay, so the main role of education is only there because this only changes the total structure of the society or the individual. Fine. So education produces skilled and trained workers. First point written over here, it increases labor productivity. Means skills. When you get knowledge, when you are trained, when you are skilled, it means that you are making yourself developed. Okay, the improvements, you are walking on the path of improvements. Now you are making improvements in your personality. So this we will discuss with the literacy rate in India. See, sometimes what we see that if the people they want to get educated, but their society is backward. Okay, their mindset is not that much developed. If we take the example of the rural areas, then what is the mindset over here that okay, boys can be sent to school but girls cannot. So such type of things are also responsible for the unproductive population. Fine. So literacy rate. This rate has risen from 16.67% in 1951 to 73% in 2011. And this rate vary from region to region. So this is what that India is a big country, and region to region we see the variations in the literacy rate. So over here I will discuss one of the things that government has started, that is SSA, that is Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, it was started in 2001 and it was at school level, primary level, and just because of that the purpose was this, that the students should come to the school at least at primary level, and the main function of this was to make the students attend the school. Fine. And they should study there at till the elementary level. They should study over there. Now, so Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, it was launched, I told you, in 2001 to provide elementary education to all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years by 2010. So especially the focus of this program was especially on girls and children of weaker sections. Fine. Now, under this SSA, another program named, that is National Program for Education of Girls at Elementary Level, that is written over NPEGEL. Fine. It has been launched in 2003 and 2004 for providing additional components for education of girls at elementary level. Okay. Now after that in the field of secondary education, some developments took place. What were those developments? That 10+2 pattern of education, that is a scheme for the establishment of residential schools, that is called Navodaya Vidyalaya. Fine. It was launched in 1987-88 to provide modern, good quality education to talented children, basically from the rural areas. Okay, from the rural areas. So these are the things which were made for the promotion of education in the rural areas. Okay. Now, see, here it is written over here about the vocationalization and residential schools. Now, higher education also. In the higher educational, I told you about vocationalization. So, more emphasis is given on higher education to increase the enrollment in the age group to 18 to 23 years. So, what type of education was there? Distant education, IT educational institutions, because the scope in this today is very much. Because distant education means you are staying at one place, and the state education university, they are providing from there that distant education, and you are taking that education in your state. Fine. So these are the things, means these are the facilitations made by the government in order to promote education throughout. I hope it is clear. Now let's come to the second factor, that is health in India. So as education, this is also very important one. So during 1941 to 51, the death rate was as high as 30 per thousand per annum. Okay, death rate was very high. This is why. What is the reason of first point? Because there was no awareness regarding the health. Advancement was not there, improvements were not there, development was not there in those days. That is why. So it has declined to 8 per thousand in 2001 because of the improvement, the development. Okay. Now, infant mortality rate has declined from 146 to 70. Life expectancy rate was 32 years, which has gone up to 65 years. And certain deadly diseases like TB, smallpox, malaria, cholera, etc., they are also under complete control. So this is how means you can say that the investment is done on these two, education and health. That is why today we are having such improvements in these fields. Fine. Now, factors which have made the improvements possible. What are those factors? The factors means more and more awareness is made among the people. First is control of communicable diseases. The people are told about this. Okay, in the past days, what happens when cholera or such type of means diseases, they are spread in the whole region. Okay, the whole village gets affected. But after that, it was controlled. So control of communicable diseases, creation of healthcare institutions in rural areas. Okay, this was very important because the people, they were not getting proper transportation to reach to city or town nearby. So they must get such type of institutions in their areas, in their region. Okay, then large expansion in the health and medical facilities. It is done now. That is why the people, they are progressing day by day, and this sector, this health sector is also progressing in India day by day. And also the expansion of medical education and research is also made over here. That is why these are the reasons, these are the factors you can say which have made health improvements in our country. Okay. So I think these two human resource inputs are clear to you completely. Now let's move to the next topic of this chapter, that is economic activities. See, what are economic activities? Those activities which help in earning. Okay, some monetary benefits are there in that. Those activities are called economic activities. Okay, so here in this chapter you will learn about the classification of these activities in the three main sectors. So these three main sectors are primary, secondary and tertiary sector. So firstly we will discuss about these three in short and then in details. So here primary sector is what? See, primary, at first it is there. So you can also call it as agricultural sector. And it means that we are getting the things directly from nature. For example, by farming, okay, fishing, animal husbandry, mining, etc. Now secondary means manufacturing sector. It is also called manufacturing sector. Why? Because whatever raw material we are getting from here, they are sent to this sector to manufacture. Okay, and after manufacturing, those are processed into the final goods and they are sent to the markets. Okay, so this is the how the secondary sector works. Now come to tertiary sector. Tertiary sector is also known as service sector. For example, I am teaching you. I am a teacher. So this is service I am giving you. Your school teachers, they are providing you that service. The doctors, okay, banking, insurance, and most important, that is transportation. Because without the services of the transportation, it is not possible to take the raw material to here, or even to take the raw material to nearby city for selling. Okay, for the benefit. And the secondary sector, when the manufactured goods are produced over here, so without the help of the transportation, they cannot send this material to the market. So there is a main role of this transportation system over here. So this comes under the service sector. I hope these three sectors are clear to you. So next we will move to economic activities. Now economic activities, what are these economic activities? See, we are talking here about the economic activities in economics. So economic activities, some earning is there. Fine. Now it is divided into two parts, means two type of economic activities are there: market activities and non-market activities. So market activities means they are performed for remuneration. What is remuneration? Means some amount is given for the work. Okay, in exchange of the work, some amount is provided, some amount is given. And non-market activities, now I am taking an example. For example, at home, your mother is working. Throughout the day she is busy. Okay, in the morning breakfast, lunch, then brunch, then dinner, then everything she maintains, washes clothes. She's always throughout. Your mother is busy in household chores. Fine. So is she paid for that work? No. Why she is working? Because it is giving the mother self satisfaction. Fine. So this is the difference between the two. Market activities where the remuneration is required, means for the activity, means in return the person is getting some amount, some remuneration. And here they are carried out for self consumption, or you can say for self satisfaction. I hope it is clear to you. You can take some more examples also of this, that for example, a nurse is there, or a doctor is there, and a doctor takes care of his own son. So this is what? This is not the market activity, this is non-market activity. Fine. So these examples which can easily tell you the meaning of these two, market and non-market activities. So let's move to next one. Now, unemployment in India. What is unemployment? And what are the causes of unemployment? You must be knowing about the causes. Yes, rapid growth in population, over dependency on agriculture. Fine. So these are the causes. Much more causes are also there. But here, firstly, we will discuss about the unemployment in two parts. Means here unemployment at rural areas are different, and in urban areas the meaning of unemployment is different. Now let's see what is that. See, broadly it is classified into two categories: rural employment, urban employment. Now rural employment is further divided into two, that is seasonal unemployment and disguised unemployment. Now listen to me very carefully. What is seasonal unemployment? Discuss about seasonal. What is seasonal unemployment? A huge number of rural workers or farmers have to remain idle for a period of 4 to 6 months in a year. Okay, agriculture, because agriculture we all know is a seasonal occupation. Hence, our workers and farmers, they do not find work round the year. So this is called seasonal unemployment. I hope it is clear. Now come to the disguised unemployment. What is this disguised? Disguised unemployment exactly is another major type of unemployment, and it refers to a situation where the number of workers engaged in a job is much more than the actually required to do the job. Okay, for example, see this problem you can take with an example. Example is that on a piece of land the work is of 5 people, but on that land 8 members are working. So it means that if you remove those 3 extra people from there, those extra farmers from there, then nothing will happen to their work, because that particular field requires only 5 people, and the 5 they are working over there. If you remove 3 of them, then it means what? That they will not affect them at all. So this is what, that those 3 people, they are disguised employed over there. Okay. So let's take another example. For example, that an individual member may feel that he is engaged in a gainful work, okay, though he may be contributing nothing to the total output. Thus, even if he is withdrawn from the work, total farm output would remain unaffected. So this feature is known as disguised or hidden unemployment. I hope now it is clear. So unemployment is hidden in the sense that we cannot point to any person and say that he is unemployed. Okay, so here the same farm output can be produced with a smaller number of persons. So disguised unemployment occurs mainly because of the three reasons. What are these three reasons? This you have to learn. These three reasons. Availability of the large labor force is there first. Second is non-availability of subsidiary or alternative, means no alternative is there. Okay, they have to do that work. They are not literate, they are not skilled, they are not educated, so they have to work. So no alternative is there. And third is family farming method. Okay, in family the same work is being done by their ancestors also, and they are also involved in that work. So these three reasons are basically responsible for disguised unemployment. I hope it is clear. So till disguised unemployment it is clear. Now let's move to the urban unemployment. So urban unemployment in India is also divided into two groups, that is educated unemployment and industrial unemployment. So what is educated unemployment? This one. Educated unemployment refers to the unemployment among the educated people, which include matriculates and higher educated. Matriculates means till high school, class 10 or more. Fine. So some of these people do not find any job. They fall under the category of open unemployment, while there are some others who are not doing any jobs according to their qualifications. So they are doing inferior jobs. Okay, so now the thing is this, that what are the reasons behind that such unemployment is there. What are the reasons? So first reason is this, that rapid expansion of general education in the country. Rapid expansion, the people, they are not aware. In the rural areas they are simply not aware, but in the urban areas also the people, they are not aware of the rapid expansion of the general education. So they are also just in a line to complete their education. They don't know about the vocationalization programs, vocationalization of education. So they are also in the same line and working according to that. So this is the main thing, that rapid expansion is there. Speed of expansion is there in this sector. Now, second is that faulty educational system. The second reason is because of the faulty educational system, which is not job oriented. The students, they are keep on studying, and till last degree they are without the job. So this is what the faulty educational system over here in India. Okay, so these two reasons are the reasons for the educated unemployment. Now let's proceed to the industrial unemployment. What is industrial unemployment? See, industrial unemployment refers to the unemployment among the illiterates who wish to work in industries, mining, transport, trade and construction activities. So problem of industrial unemployment in India has become an acute problem because of increasing migration of the rural people to urban industrial area. This is the reason, in search of employment. But our industrial sector has not expanded so much so as to absorb the surplus agricultural workers. So moreover, capital intensive techniques are being increasingly used by our industrial sector. So these capital intensive techniques displaced the labor force and hence have contributed to a large volume of industrial unemployment in the country. So this is the reason for the industrial unemployment. Okay, I hope now this unemployment in India and all these categories, classifications, they are all clear to you. So after this I want to discuss about the consequences of unemployment. Okay, so unemployment is considered the most threatening problem as it has serious socio-economic consequences. Now first consequence is wastage of productive resources. The unemployment problem signifies the wastage of human resource. Okay, the reasons are that the society is deprived of goods and services and the unemployed people could have produced. As a result, national welfare is adversely affected to that extent. Okay. Next reason is that if unemployment is among the educated persons, the quantum of wastage of the resources will be greater. So this is due to the investment in education and skill formation. Not only this, where workers are out of work for long periods, there is a loss of skill and work habits. So finally, lack of work and income may make it difficult for them to get adequate food. This affects their efficiency and earning capacity adversely. Okay. Then other thing is this, that increase in economic overload. What is this? Because unemployment, it tends to increasing economic overload. So the dependence of the unemployment on the working population reduces the per capita availability of goods and services for others. So thus the quality of life of an individual as well as of the society is adversely affected. Then next problem, you can say inequalities in income also. This is also the main problem that people are facing, because unemployment is a source of income inequalities. Okay, one person is getting of the same category, same qualification, less amount, and the other person, because it depends now that from which university, from which institution the person has done that course, has completed that course, from which type of. So it also depends. The standardization means the standard university is there, or the fake university is there, or you can say that the people they studied in the university like the regular, in a regular way or in a private way. It also makes the difference. Fine. So unemployment is a source of income inequalities. How? That unemployed people are generally poor. So hence unemployment adds to a number of persons who are below poverty line. Okay, who are. So during the period of high unemployment, the extent of poverty and inequalities of income tend to increase. Fine. Now what is the next problem? Next is the social effects also. See, unemployment is not only an economic evil, it is a social evil too. Okay, how? Unemployment means unemployed people are a frustrated class of the society. Is it there? That is the frustrated class of the society, and there are the cases of suicide, social unrest and tensions. So unemployment leads to oppression and exploitation in the society. Fine. So these are all the reasons that why the unemployment is there and what are the consequences of unemployment. I hope this whole thing is clear. Now in the next video you will get the questions to practice and 1-2 questions for the presentation. So if you are having any queries, then do message or drop out your queries, and those queries will be answered. So take care everyone, and please watch this video again and again to get all your problems and concepts clear. Okay, so take care. Goodbye.